Hello, everybody. Welcome to this amazing webinar with Rohan Verma, CEO of MapmyIndia. Rohan, is so delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for sparing your time. I know you're absolutely in the thick of things and during the entire COVID-19 crisis, the entire company, and you have really stepped up to make a public difference. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Aditya, for having me. Yeah, I think I'm a bit spaced out because we are just slammed with requests from the different government authorities to support on mapping. It's something we wanted to do, but we didn't imagine how much of a big effort it would require. So yeah, it's been so. When you asked, I had to join it. So.
Thank you so much. While we are waiting for attendees to join, and we'll just take a couple of minutes to make sure that everybody who is trying to join can get in. But how's it going? I mean, how's the company managing from this work from home? Obviously, perhaps a little bit easier being a tech company, but it's never that easy, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually been a bit difficult for us. We are a tech company as well as a digital factory. To be honest, we do have a factory setup because we create maps in an assembly line and a production process. Our IP sits in the office as well as in the cloud. So, it does require everybody to be there together. So we've had to reconfigure how we work. I think some parts of our company have actually operated very well in this scenario. Some things have actually been pleasant surprises for us about the discipline and systems. But overall, I can just imagine and empathize with how difficult it has been for many companies, especially factory setups, really difficult setup.
Brilliant. So, big question, right? So MapmyIndia has been playing a leading role in the entire COVID response. You guys were the first to really come out. And I don't think anybody else has really done a great job in really trying to, really map down everything that's happening in India in COVID-19. I know that's one of the big topics we're going to cover is, how you were able to do it and, what is available in terms of, both information and as well as how people are collaborating with you. But just if you just spend a couple of minutes on the MapmyIndia journey, a lot of people don't know or remember that MapmyIndia was here way before Google Maps, way before a lot of the perhaps globally more well-known mapping systems were there.
Yeah. So we're a 25-year-old company started by my parents, and I think back in the early 90s, digital maps didn't exist in India. But they had this vision that someday 80% of all data would have a location component to it. I think in the trade shows, people used to call them crazy. And I think today we are saying even Arogya Setu has a location component to it. So I think that's been the big kind of validation of that old vision. I think the company spent the first 10 years just building maps. So surveying the country, running vehicles, collecting data, geolocation data of roads, buildings, shops, etc. I think at the time you got to know me, Aditya, which is when I joined Stanford. So
it's been a while, Rohan.
It's been now 16, 17 years since we know each other. And I think I remember such good stories of how you were guiding, mentoring, even in our orientation for the international students. But it was around that time when I got involved with the company to start the consumer side of MapmyIndia, which is the mapping portal. When we realized that, to make this available to everybody, we got to do this online. So this is 2004. Like you said, way before the times of Google. And since then, of course, with Google coming in, a lot of things have changed in the industry. I think technology has really evolved. Mobile technologies, data science, data analytics, even location as a topic has evolved a lot. So even we've had to reconfigure how we work a lot. And in the last few years, I think we've kind of figured out what is needed for the next 5 years, next 10 years in mapping. So that's what.
And one of the things which I love that what MapmyIndia does, I am convinced, particularly in places like Delhi, Bombay, every single colony decides that they will try to optimize the best way to do house numbering. right? So you go in and it's like odd is that way, even is that way, but you have this, you have that, you have here, you have there. And, I still remember for most of my life, saying, okay, we need to arrive 15 minutes early just to figure out the colony map by where, what, why, like, why can't we have a standardized system, right? And each time it's new. And, a lot of the other mapping guys, including, the big stalwarts like Google, have just not been able to get their act together. If I enter an address into Google, is always like a 50-50, particularly on residential addresses and SMEs and MSMEs, whether it'll even give me the right place. I've reached to some crazy places when I've used Google. How have you been able to get MapmyIndia to be so accurate?
See, it's a combination of, just money will not solve this issue. It also requires time, it requires effort, it does require a lot of technology, and then it requires a hyper-local knowledge. So it is a fact that all the addresses in India are very at a hyper-local level. And there are multiple addressing systems, old systems and new systems in different cities. Like you said, different ways of numbering. India is this microcosm of multiplicitous ways of addressing. We've actually collected about 1.5 crore different addresses, and we continue to add to that. And on one side, we have collected the geolocation information about it, even in terms of where exactly you would navigate to if you had to enter that address. We're even going indoors, we're even going upwards in terms of 3D. And we've created a system which we think is a simplified, unique system called ELOC, which is a 6-character code. We actually got inspired by both the PIN code of India and the postal code of UK, where the PIN code is a good 6-character code to understand and sort, etc.
At least get down to the neighborhood level, right?
At least get down to the neighborhood. But the problem was the PIN code is of the old age, and today we need a digital PIN code to a doorstep. And so we looked at what the postal code in UK is. It's again a 6-character code, so it's standardized, and it gives you, but it only gives you an accuracy of up to 25 meters. So we said that we'll create a unique location identity for every door, every object. And that's what a 6-character code is, what is ELOC. And then there's a lot of things that can be built on top of that stack. Let me say a location stack can be built on top of this addressing system to enable a lot of different use cases. And I think you'll be talking a little bit about that.
I'll come back to that later, but I want to first stick to our main thing, this entire mapping COVID thing. Right? Do you want to start by maybe showing us some of this?
Yeah.
And just as a context for attendees, we want this to be interactive, right? So there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and please feel free to answer questions. We'd love to get your thoughts that you want to send at Rohan, and please use the Q&A button, and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible. We prefer your questions on the Q&A rather than on the chat screen. That enables us to make sure that we have a much better conversation. And if you want, you can use your full name and title, and I'll be love to give you credit for your question, or you can ask as an anonymous attendee. Both of which are absolutely fine.
So, just to set the context, Aditya, about 1 month ago, when this Corona crisis, I think now even more than 1 month ago, maybe 5 weeks ago, when the Corona crisis started to look serious, that there would be issues that Indians would be facing. We felt the first thing that people would want to be able to do is find the nearest Corona testing, treatment, and isolation centers to where they are. And so our team basically set about mapping those. We have already, of course, mapped out all the health facilities across the country. But we tried to figure out, which ones were offering Corona-related testing, treatment, and isolation facilities, or for citizens, and we put that on the map. We allowed for people to search for that, so you can, if I'm able to.
So Rohan, while we're looking at this right now, this is available to the public right now, right?
This is available to the public. So the first premise that we had is, like, we need to inform citizens about where corona-related information, where it exists and how it affects them at a hyper-local level. So people can go to maps.mapindia.com/corona. This is our public COVID guide, which has all sorts of information. They can download our app. They can open our Move app, MapmyIndia Move app, and there they can, or on our public portal maps.mapmyindia.com, they can search for this information nearby. So whether it is corona treatment centers, testing centers, even sample collection centers, isolation centers. So just to give you some idea, these are the testing labs across the country, or sample collection facilities across the country. Um, I don't know if you're able to see my browser, but then these are the isolation centers across the country. So someplace in, say, Patiala, this is where the isolation center is. Um, you can, of course, see, sorry, go on.
One big concern, of course, is how often is the data updated, and where are you getting the data sources from? Obviously,
Yeah.
every 2-3 days they keep changing. One day this hospital is impaneled, one day it's not, one day the new center has come up, one day something else. So would love to get an idea of how frequently the data is updated, and which sources do you trust?
Yeah. See, actually, that is so. MapmyIndia has two kind of core skill sets, which we thought would be very useful during this time. It's also useful in normal times, but in decision making or in a crisis time, I think it becomes even more important. One is to be able to create maps. That means mapping out non-geo-referenced information accurately down to the building level. And the second is keeping that updated because information changes. So we have kind of a pipeline of human plus AI where we ingest from different data sources, and I'll come to the data sources regarding corona, and we update that daily and dynamically. What I mean by daily and dynamically is our teams are actually continuously monitoring different data sources, and daily they are updating that information in the and if the information changes more frequently and we want to, because our users or customers ask us to update that information more dynamically, we're able to do that as well. So these state-wise corona cases, we are updating in sync with the health Ministry of Health, and that's being updated every 12 hours. We're also, for example, on this migrant worker issue became a big thing 2-3 weeks ago. Even today, it's in the news. And essentially, the issue was that these migrant workers are stuck in different parts of the country. So the National Disaster Management Authority, under the aegis of MHA, the Home Ministry, coordinated with all the state disaster management authorities, the different district magistrates, to figure out who has set up what relief camps for migrant workers across the country. This becomes super useful because they also have a lot of information as to what the facilities are there, how much capacity is available, does it have medical kind of assistance available there, etc. So lots of very interesting data that they're able to collect, and then in their war room, using their tools, using some of our tools, they're able to analyze and kind of plan for to serve the needs of these migrant workers. But what information they wanted us to publish is where these relief camps are across the country, so that in case you are aware that people are having issues, or there are different helplines that have been set up where people can call either directly for themselves or on behalf of people that they know. This information is known that, near to Agra, this is the relief camp available. This is where people can go. So, in the case of Delhi government, for example, they wanted to also show where the free food or hunger relief and the night shelters that they have set up are, and also the Delhi government ration shops that they have set up to support the essential supplies for the Aam Aadmi, the normal citizens. And so that's an information set that we work with them and their team of volunteers. I think it's Georgetown University, the Digital Urban Observatory, which is kind of helping them collate this and map this in coordination with them. we have put that out on the public corona guide. And I think they'll be also ingesting this in their own portals and apps and services as well. So that could give you an idea of different sets of data sources that we are working with. We are also tracking mainstream media. There are for cases and information that is coming up. We want to tag them as unverified because it may or may not be exactly correct. But there's also this requirement that people are wanting to know, at least map out the information so that we can do a sanity check on it. Because right now it's coming in as anecdotal information, it is coming up as textual information. But when you start seeing how it can impact you in your neighborhood, then actually a lot of people say, this data may or may not make sense.
So you're
Like,
tagging, Rohan,
yeah.
so you're tagging verified, verified, correct?
Yeah, we are. I think some of the UI is still to reflect that, but yeah, we are tagging information as government verified and not. We have the source also of the information. So where it is clearly government source, we have also been able to say that, like you see NDMA or Delhi government, etc., MOHFW.
Brilliant. And, by the way, welcome to all the participants who have just joined us and are joining us. Please ask your questions using the Q&A button. We'd love to get your questions here as well, and keep this as interactive as possible. Rohan, how did this get put together? I mean, where did you start? I mean, it was just like, oh, we have maps and here's Corona, but this is a huge effort. This is quite a lot of data.
Yeah. Basically, sorry. It started with this idea that the first thing people would want is information as to where the testing, treatment, and isolation centers are. So we provisioned a large team in our company. It's actually now it's about 200 people who are in total working on this across our mapping and software teams.
So you have 200 people dedicated to giving Corona updated information.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the company are upset with me that I've asked for a lot of existing business to be put on hold.
That's great. I mean, this is what I call leadership during time of crisis, and I've been saying continuously through this entire COVID-19 experience that this is when reputations are built. And to take 200 people off and say we're just going to focus on Corona is an absolutely wonderful thing.
Actually, the thing is, once you start saying you're going to support the government authorities and you take that kind of decision, and I think I'm also lucky that we are supported by our board, our chairman on this initiative. Then the requests keep coming in. So overnight, we got asked by National Disaster Management Authority. Overnight, we got asked by Karnataka state government. Actually, just as of a few days ago, we got asked overnight by the Noida district authorities. And, they are a budding hotspot and they are doing a tough job in terms of trying to contain that. We got asked by the Invest India folks, the Principal Scientific Advisor Office, to support. So actually it happens also organically. Once you make a decision, then you have to also see it through. And we felt, till the time that this cannot be brought completely into control, the Corona crisis, if the government authorities need our support, we would love to support. I think Delhi government also in the same vein, their team kept sharing that, this is what we are doing, this is what issues citizens are facing. For that, these are the resources we've made available. And I think, to be honest, it didn't happen overnight that we said, we have, like you said, it's not that we said we have maps and we have Corona and we'll do something. We, for the last 1 year, what we've tried to do is make sure that the maps are hyper-local and real-time. I think that's the key thing that we found that is missing right now in the mapping space is, are the maps truly hyper-local and are they truly real-time? In a sense that can MapmyIndia help make it give a hyper-local real-time media feel to the information so that we know what affects us nearby now. So it started off a few months ago when the Delhi government was sharing that, these are the free Wi-Fi hotspots we've put out. And so we said, okay, we'll take that data, we'll map it so that people know where the nearby free Wi-Fi hotspots are, and frankly, that they can try it. And if there are issues in that, then they can respond to it. So I think we've taken that process forward with Corona. There's, of course, a lot more types of information with regards to Corona that we are putting out. Um, the other thing that I wanted to add is, people did start facing issues in two folds when it came to Corona. So while the authorities were doing the best they could, with regards to isolation centers, initially there was a lot of problems people were facing, that the isolation wards were not hygienic, etc. So we actually allowed people to put out conditions of facilities and report that in the map, so that authorities could know that this isolation ward is having an issue. And actually, some citizens have kind of used that information to plan out. I'm telling you about the early days of Corona when people were
Absolutely.
coming from abroad. Where should they check in? Like, there were people who said, okay, I want to stay at the Ibis because at least it's hygienic. They pre-planned. I mean, it was a useful tool then. Post the lockdown, actually, there was a lot of issues that people were facing. And, whether it's somebody overcharging for groceries, or, if somebody was loitering around and violating the lockdown. So we actually are encouraging people to report issues they are facing, and we're sharing that with the authorities. I mean, if you see our Twitter feed, that is publicly sharing it, but also privately, we are giving access to the authorities, whoever's collaborating with us, to get access to this information, so they know what the on-ground challenges people are facing are, and then they can respond to it. I mean, the idea is to basically help people connect using maps, share information, hyper local, real time, and then have actions taken upon it, so that, what they say, you can fix things one person at a time. You can also fix the country one place at a time. That was the idea with which, these are the efforts we are making. How much impact, we'll be able to have is, how much reach we'll be able to get with the help of our partnerships, etc.
But Ron, this is delightful. So it's not just, hey, here's a bunch of maps, find where you're going, but it's also allowing users to put in contextual information about the COVID-19 thing. I love the quarantine centers. I still remember those awful reports and pictures that had come out of very few quarantine centers, but there were a lot of quarantine centers which are doing a brilliant job.
Correct.
And I think, why do I care about a quarantine center 1,000 kilometers away from me?
Yeah.
I want to know that if I have to get quarantined, what is the quality pictures state of the quarantine center right next to me? And I think having that contextual information, and you and I are not going to go in a lockdown to find a quarantine center and take pictures, right? We have to depend on users who are actually there to tell us what's really happening. Brilliant. Have there been some unexpected insights, some interesting things that have come out as you went through the mapping of his disease journey?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I think the interesting thing that came up is, our business was also affected by this, to be honest. A lot of our customers who use our APIs and our tools, our maps, are mobility companies. And also a lot of consumers use our gadgets to track their vehicles, remotely monitor the status. And we saw a huge drop in mobility and movement. And so we had a few news outlets reach out to us to be able to get stats on, on vehicular movement density and things like that. And it was overnight, we saw like 80-90% drop in mobility. So I think that was, the numbers also showed what you were seeing on the roads. I think that was the one
and
big
the air
effect.
also.
Yeah, so this part we were not doing, in terms of, we show local AQI, but we haven't been able to show it. We've been wanting to do that, but we haven't gotten around to doing that yet, which is AQI pan country. But there are a lot of other tools which do that, and you really feel the difference on the air. So these are the let's say, the good sides of Corona, where air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, all have gone down. You know, but I mean, I don't, I don't know that it's unintended.
Rohan, now a lot of one of the things I remember that Map and My India does, it does have vehicle and even people trackers. Particularly for small children, all their options to make sure in case they get lost on the way to school or parks and all that has taken off. Have you seen any interest from the government or from private organizations to to try and bring this technology to track people who are quarantined? I know Maharashtra came out with with an electioning stamp system for quarantine, and we saw all the time that actually worked really well, but that's anecdotal. Has there been a reach out or any thought from people on actually either embedding devices or giving people options, particularly around devices which can't easily be taken off, because I know there's a huge ethical and privacy dilemma there.
Yeah, I mean, see, actually, there's been a bunch of reach out and a lot of ideas. I think a lot of brainstorming. So actually, we did have some folks reach out to us that, for quarantine patients, we want to actually give them a device. So we have these personal trackers, which people give for either their children or their security guards, to be able to monitor and their health, their safety, their movement, location, and safety. But in this case, it was something like where they wanted to not let the patient break it, almost like a prisoner kind of
Like
thing. So,
basically, I am literally, when I thought of that, I was reminded of those anklet bracelets, right? That
yeah, yeah.
give
So,
like
so, so,
people who are like house arrest,
yeah.
and then
We
they're
we
and if you
have
tamper with them.
so we told them that we have done these things where people who are transporting valuable goods, cash vans or gold bars, like we have created personal trackers in those shapes and form, but we felt this was going a bit too far, and I don't think it was going to be practical because if some and then we suggested that, look, some of the ways to do this is to use the telcos for location information, and I think that is one path that many government authorities have done. I think the second path that they've done, primarily Arogya Setu, which is a combination of location and Bluetooth. This is another path that they've taken. I think that's interesting. It's a model being followed by a few other government authorities. Yeah, all of these, the flip side of technology enabling is the ethics and privacy around it. And I'm sure that will be hotly debated as to, under what conditions to use, not use, how that data is accessed, not accessed. These are big questions from the regulator point of view. So that's for the citizen tracking. On the other side, for field workers, tracking them, our tools are definitely used. I mean, it's already used by various organizations to track a mobile workforce, get them, dispatch them towards some task or some delivery or some, and monitor whether they have reached that location at the right time, geotag them from an attendance point of view. These are generic tools that are being used by various organizations. So I think that is less morally fraught because you need this in your day-to-day daily course of operations.
Do you think one of the things, Rohan, and you're part of many groups that I'm part of, which have these hot discussions on these privacy issues, and I remember post 9/11, what our definition of privacy suddenly changed, right? And I remember traveling and going to the US and other places pre 9/11 and post 9/11, and the kind of privacy intrusions that suddenly became okay and the norm were unthought of earlier. And a lot of people are saying that COVID-19, we have all now, the government has this brilliant Ragasetu app, which is essentially a national tracking system of all its citizens. And obviously during a crisis you need these tools. But do you see this, that we are on that slippery slope, like a post COVID-19? There's going to be a lot of political will, and a lot of people are saying, what, we need better tracking of people. We need to understand who's sick. Obviously, we are all hoping this COVID stuff comes under control over the next 6 months, 1 year. But I think there are going to be calls if we have another COVID-19. The world economy can't survive this. People can't survive this. Should we start tracking people who are sick with infectious diseases? Do you think we've seen
See,
that
I
slippery
mean,
slope?
uh, technology is always a slippery slope. But what they did with Jandhan, which is digitize the mobile bank accounts of everybody, uh, in a sense, it is inevitable if you really want to be able to cater to everybody in a targeted manner. You would need to use, you could need to use this technology. If I, as a regular citizen, without any technology hat on my head, would say ideally we should have alternative ways of delivering the similar information to citizens, which are not as intrusive. Um, but in the moment of a crisis, you use the tools that are at hand, you make it available. I really hope that there's a lot of debate on and open sourcing of such types of technology so that it can be inspected. Um, but yeah, in these moments of crisis, basically, the leadership has to take a call based on many different inputs, and I think overall, I'm actually quite happy with how the various governments have responded. I think in India, we are lucky. We are in a potentially super hazardous situation, and so far, whatever the efforts one can nitpick and say, this is good, not good. But overall, our country is in a okay situation. Not taking away from the fact that a lot of people are suffering, and we are probably in a privileged position. But having worked with various government authorities, I'm seeing how dedicated they are in terms of getting the information out, getting the information in as to who is suffering where and what can we do to mitigate. So they are doing their work. Um, so I
Rohan,
hope.
I'm very glad to hear the great confidence in the government authorities and their ability to do it. And I think that's one of the strengths of India is having those institutions who are stepping up at this time. I compare us to many other countries who don't have these strong institutions and they're flailing about even when they should. And it's rather strange to see them at this. And I take your point well on the Ragoya Setu app. It would have been really nice if the government open sourced it. I think they still may, and I think that's the biggest confidence that you can give to people. Um, that really pushes things through. Uh, Ron, tell me one thing. We one of the things that we figured out during this COVID-19 crisis is the fragility of supply chains, right? Is the fragility of e-commerce. We had a webinar with the president of Grofers, Bikram Bedi, and we were talking about getting stuff to people's homes to do deliveries, to do it well. And over this conversation, we also had a couple of CII town halls where we spoke to courier companies, supply people, and such. And one of the critical themes that was going through everybody's mind is that suddenly they realized how poor is the tracking of the supply chains, and this entire notion of locational identity started to come up again,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because suddenly you had all these we I my delivery network has to expand by 50%, right? There are people who've never used my product or service before, right? There are factories in the middle of nowhere according to my mapping system, and guess what? There's no one on the street to ask for directions. I can't waste time. It's very dangerous. It's a dangerous job for me to go out for any reason. And it's even further dangerous if I'm lost and looking for an address. And I think for businesses, for bringing shipments in, receiving goods, supplies, activating transport, this has been a phenomenal problem. And I think for residents trying to get home deliveries, this has been a phenomenal problem. And what I loved about your location identity initiatives uh, is that it actually really solves this down because, as you said, it breaks a 25-meter problem and starts bringing it even closer. Would love to do a little bit of a deep dive in this. What is locational identity, and let's take a step by step on how can it transform India. Please, this is a
yeah.
great thing.
Aditya, on that one point about businesses, because you brought it up, and a lot of corporates, businesses are our customers. And the biggest question that they've been asking us over the last 1-2 weeks. So of course, the e-commerce delivery companies, they are customers. We have the traditional FMCG retail companies, banks, etc. They're all asking. They're all trying to do a COVID assessment threat analysis, COVID threat assessment analysis. They are wanting to know, where are the containment zones? Are my warehouses or where I have to deliver these goods, whether to retailers or to consumers, are they in a containment zone or near a containment zone, and what is the nearby testing, treatment, and isolation center? So I think a lot of businesses right now are factoring Corona into their operations as they deal with, I mean, after that initial shock that, there's going to be a lockdown, and then for some people, they have to operate in a very difficult environment. So yeah, equally like government authorities, the businesses are now leveraging this mapping and location information around Corona. So, I mean, coming to the location identity piece, yeah, how do you make systems work seamlessly? How do you bring efficiency into sharing of addresses, into understanding what an address, where an address is, and getting directions to it, planning your operations around it? How do you make it less manual and less people driven and more systematic process and automatic driven?
I mean, I'll be frank with you, Rohan. The fact that in 2020, for every transaction, every shipment, I have to re-enter my often humongously long address, this number, house number, flat number, this. Why can't I just drop a code and say, here's a 6-digit, 7-digit code, and cut, copy, paste, this is where I am, figure it out, right?
The genesis, you said it absolutely correctly. The genesis of our idea was just like there's Aadhaar for people, there can be e-lock for places. Underlying that code, this is a digital error, this is a digital address system. Underlying that digital code could be linked to it various databases, which are, for example, if it's the electricity department, beyond that digital address code, which by the way is not disclosing PII, it's a privacy safe address system. It's just like saying S360 Greater Kailash 2, you're saying ABC123. That's not disclosing any PII, but it is linked underlying to not just the location information, but other business logic information. So if you're the electricity department, you need to know which are the residents which stay in that building and what is the condition of their, bill payment. If they have to report an issue regarding their electricity condition, all they have to share is their e-log. Similarly, if you're an e-commerce delivery company, and the nice thing is with e-log, we have about 40, 50 different delivery companies which are using our API. So if you order from McDonald's today in South and West, for example, you can put in your e-log for instead of kind of typing out that full address, and they'll be able to get to know exactly where your door is, and it won't be the same as a WhatsApp pin which can appear behind or on the side. It is precisely mapped to an address. So the genesis with that idea of it being like an Aadhaar for place and linked to that code could be other business logic information useful for a business, useful for the government, useful for the citizen, but it's a common code which can be provided. So, that's what we're trying to do. Introduce a new system is,
walk me through this, right? So,
okay.
I mean, is the e-log standard an open standard now? Is it available for any company to use, or do they have to sign up to MapmyIndia right now?
I'm trying to see if I can pull up.
It'd be great to see what it looks like.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So e-log is basically a simplified 6-character location code for a complex address.
Now,
different.
before
Yeah.
before we go down, can you explain why 6 characters, and can you and
Okay.
and
Give
is
an
there an
example.
organic chemistry version of these 6 characters, like M stands for blah, you know?
Okay. So, we thought about it. It's a debatable, it's a debate, it's a system. I'm showing you an example of how you would type in an e-lock and get to know, get that exact place and get directions to it. Or if you typed in a house number, you would get to know its e-lock instead that you could use to share. Now, it is a debate as to should there be any encoding of information in the code itself. And so this becomes a little bit technical, but the more information you try to encode, like the pin code, the less granular you can go with a set of characters. So the pin code, the way the system was designed by the Britishers, then 1110 1100 1100 110048. It referred to some regions of the country, north, east, south, west, some
Uh,
state, so on
Absolutely.
and so forth.
I mean, you and I have been around long enough to remember when even cell phones, you could say whether it was from Delhi, Bombay,
Correct,
you know, the
exactly. So,
98100
so
versus
you, ru-
982.
you run out of characters very quickly. The more addresses you want to factor in. So we said, okay, let's keep that out of the domain right now. Our objective is to map out in a standardized manner as many locations as possible. What is interesting is people can build on top of this. So this is a public address system. Now, on top of this, people could theoretically create personalized handles which link to this, or they could link their own databases to this. So, I don't think we have yet reached the level where we are saying that people need to necessarily use this ELOC code as the communication system because there is going to be a lot of debate on what that system is, and we want to let that piece be debated and be adopted the way it is thought correctly. But the hard work of mapping out each address and figuring out what the exact location information of that is in terms of how do you navigate to it, is it what type of building is it, all of that groundwork of plumbing we have already done. So if you was, for example, the MCA, who wants to kind of have information about each business and then wants to run analytics as to are there shell companies which are all located at the same address. Now, this is
By the
something
way, for attendees, nothing wrong with that. Standard practice around the world. Go ahead, Rohan.
this is something we work with the tax department of India only on, where people either knowingly or unknowingly put in addresses in different forms and different in their income tax return differently, in their credit card spend differently, and they will try to get a hyper local picture about the spend and income for each particular building. Now, I mean, in our case, we don't deal with any PII, but we helped them look at each address. I mean, in an automated manner, we're talking about crores and crores of addresses from like 10 or 12 different data sets, and standardize them to one e-log essentially, so that then they can get a reverse picture that for this e-log, these are the different sets of information we have. But this becomes the common kind of code around which it is built. In this locational identity, there are two pieces to this. One is the underlying digital address system, and then is the communication address that you want to give. And I know there will be debate on that, whether this code itself is useful or people want
No,
personal.
no, no. I mean, it's a standard decision everybody has to take, right? Whether you make something that is like human readable immediately, or
Right.
there's also privacy concerns as well,
Exactly.
and what data gets encoded, and
Yeah.
you pick one master coding system. It's not like mathematics or chemistry where there's a predictable, list of, you know, uh, a type of materials or elements or tables. States split, cities expand, names change, ways of arranging human populations always do. And so, of course, there's a danger that whatever system you come up with, it's going to stop working very soon. Uh, but just on the open governance standards, do you see the ELOC system being adopted by the government or the post office and saying, look, all this hard work has been done, let's just turn this into national standards?
It's a long process. We actually did start on some good initiative with the Department of Post. Uh, uh, it's it's going to take a while, I guess, for a standard around addressing systems to be made. We're seeing different cities under the Smart City initiative talking about different unique property addressing systems. So we are trying to navigate that by nudging them towards, okay, you want to have a unique addressing system because it serves your XYZ purpose. We will also link it to ELOC so that at least when another system wants to interact with your system, at least there's this common code around which these two can interconnect. So um, we think it's going to take a while, but we are working on it one developer at a time, one government authority at a time, one business at a time.
But I think that's a very rational way to approach it, right? It's a lot easier to act as the translational mechanism in the middle between two discrete systems than to try to make something which is more public facing, as a standard. And I think even just getting I see the ELOC system as the India's unique key for addresses, and if you have a unique key, you can at least start aggregating a lot of database information, which is what you really want to do about a particular time. I can even look at 5-10 years from now, if this has gone ahead in a much more significant manner. Next time we have COVID, next time we have anything happen, you're able to find out a lot more about a location because you have those unique set of ELOC
Yeah.
pins there, which you can just push into a system and find out a lot more information about what's going on. Even one of the big things that are troubling decision makers, right? They see a COVID hotspot, right? And so they have a general idea of the area, but it's very difficult for them within that to quickly come up with, how many restaurants are there, how many businesses, how many unique doors. Yes, there's a large house that there may be one family in it, or there might be 10 families, depending on the unique door to door, as you said. It's one ELOC to one door. If there are businesses, what are those businesses, what they're supposed to do. And the government has those databases, right? It has it in the tax information, it has an MCA, they have it in the voter registrations, they have all this locational data, but they're not able to pull it together because somebody writes some address in one way, somebody writes another address in some way. And my favorite is people love to, especially, and by the way, I love developers, so please don't take it any other way, but you have a lot of people who try to rename places just to make them sound more upscale. And so suddenly you have no clue what's an actual reflection, even between the government databases. So, I'm very excited about this technology.
Yeah, let's see. We're a patient company. It's been 25 years since we've been at this. Myself, I've been involved for 16 years now. So uh, I feel like this is a hard problem to crack, but it's going to be very useful. Like you said, even today people ask us that if I have a warehouse somewhere, I need to know what is around it in this time of crisis. Or if I'm a government authority in this region, in this neighborhood, how many people live, how many ration shops are there, how many essential supply shops are there, and for that place, who are the people who belong there, etc. There's a lot of analytics that can be built if this unique key or unique location identity is leveraged. And I think we're getting there. There are more and more systems that are adopting this, and we're helping them kind of create this geo-referenced map of their information. So let's see how that goes.
We have a couple of audience questions I also want to take. Tanya Rora is really trying to ask that, what's the difference between MapmyIndia and Google Maps? And Tanya, I started off by saying I love Google Maps, but in India it keeps getting me lost in colonies. because particularly residential addresses are not very well covered. But I leave it to the expert, Rohan.
Yeah, I mean, I think Google Maps is great. I think what you'll find is MapmyIndia is a Indian hyperlocal alternative in the sense that you will find many more residential addresses that you can search for in MapmyIndia. You'll also find the search more tuned towards how you would look for places in India. You'd also find more tools and more functionality in MapmyIndia, both as a consumer as well as a business, a government authority, and a developer. So, for example, we allow you to report hyperlocal issues that are happening in the MapmyIndia system. You can report today, that there's a lockdown-related issue happening in your vicinity, in your neighborhood, and that can get surfaced to other users. It can be surfaced to power users, meaning government authorities, who can respond to that. So the set of tools available to a user or a customer of MapmyIndia are much broader than what Google Maps offers, and the information is more detailed. I think these are the two ways that I can say that just the way you have a Netflix and Amazon Prime, or a Flipkart and an Amazon, or a Hotstar, Zomato and Swiggy. I think it's totally worthwhile to have two tools in your phone. Something can help you in some way, some other thing can help you in another way. Then it's your choice.
We have another question. Do e-commerce companies like Big Basket, Swiggy, Zomato, anybody else? I mean, you had mentioned almost 35 plus companies that are large in India using it. How's
Yeah.
that experience been?
So, I mean, there's a lot of different companies who use our APIs, and I think that's what I meant by developers. So, whether it's PhonePe or Paytm or Grofers or Yulu, just to name a few, or Porter, they're all using our APIs in various ways. It has also been a challenge for us to kind of, dislodge the mindset that Google Maps is the only kind of mapping service there. But I think as they try out our maps, try out our APIs, they find it to be both technically as well as commercially better for them. Uh, uh, and so it's been actually really good experience to power a lot of these great services. I think we have an incredibly rich ecosystem of innovators in India who are building great consumer-facing services, and just to enable them, it's with maps and location information, analytics, and it's been good. But there's a long way to go for us towards getting to many more developers as well.
We have a question around the COVID-19 guide. Are you providing those? Can people embed this information in their app or
Yeah.
website?
Yeah, I wanted to show that. So exactly, that was our intention, that we wanted, you can see my screen, right?
Yes,
We
yes.
want people to be able to embed this information in their own apps, tools, and systems, as well as war rooms. And so we have released APIs. There's some standard embed APIs that are there, as well as we can create more customized APIs, package them so that people can consume them in different ways. And that's part of our overall API stack. So, there's a quick way, an easy way to integrate the COVID information into different apps and services. And we found a few different organizations do that. And then a lot more organizations also asking us for kind of specific APIs and things like that. So, yeah,
Yes.
you just have to go to maps.mapmyindia.com/corona or mapmyindia.com/API/corona.
Fantastic. Ron, we have a question from Mr. Satyam Khatak from LNT. Uh, Satyamji is wondering, and Satyamji, I'm going to paraphrase your question. Can these, one of the big problems they are facing right now is tracking and deploying migrant labor coming in from different states, particularly in large construction sites. Now, the government, and to just add some context to this, the government, for example, this morning has said that large areas, if they can lock in, self-contained with their workers and
Yeah,
trackers and such,
yeah.
they're able to do this. Have you seen construction companies deploy this, or do you see a future in that?
Yeah. I think basically the NDMA is tracking information of how many migrant workers in which parts of the country. It is an information that we are working with them on. So, I mean, happy to make that connection as well. I mean, feel free to reach out to me on either privately or LinkedIn or something. But yeah,
Send us a message to CI. We are happy to connect you to Rohan for any any questions as well. I have also inserted in the chat the list of all the CI webinars. We are doing a few of them every week with amazing people like Rohan all the time. We have a Telegram channel, which is the CI official channel, which is now open to the public during the COVID crisis. We post all the videos, all the other information. For example, we'll be posting some of the API links, the COVID map links and such from our talk today. We are also pushing out HR resources, templates, and just giving people an update every day. For those who don't use Telegram, we have a couple of WhatsApp broadcast only groups. These are not discussion groups. We only post in them maybe once or twice a day, just again to remind people of the webinars, or if we've promised you certain things that we'll gift you from the webinars, we normally post those on those groups. You only need to join one of the broadcast groups on WhatsApp. They're pretty much the same, since WhatsApp does have the 250 limit. One of them might hit that during this in this session. Satyamji, just for LNT, one of the interesting things that we've seen, and I think MapmyIndia has a technology for this, is that in terms of providing compliance information on social distancing. So we have seen some companies, and I won't name them, who have asked their workers to put trackers on them. And so, and then have a mapping system, which is a little bit more, but particularly for larger sites, this works better than smaller factories. So they can understand how workers are moving, how they're gathering, are there, are social distancing norms being followed? And then using that data. It still is infancy stage, but I think that is something that is very useful that L&T can do for its larger sites. And it's just a small wristband or a voluntary thing that they can use. And, if you need to show compliance on that, there is there. We have Harjai Gambhir. When someone sends a location to us, would that be opened upon MapmyIndia on my computer mobile if I have the app?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So it's directly there. So I think
it can open both in the app as well as in the browser. Either way. I mean,
but do they need to sign up for the e-lock first?
No.
So I think what they've done is they've already given most people an e-lock address based on their address and database. So you can just type it in and it'll open. The person doesn't need to have to sign up to get an e-lock address. They have already been given one. Raj, how can blockchain be used in map navigation to enhance efficiency and accuracy? I love this. Let's throw blockchain at everything. Great question, Raj. Rohan, what has been the sexy, glamorous blockchain mapping thing?
Honestly, I am no expert on blockchain for the map. I know there have been a lot of talk around decentralized systems. I know that there are capabilities around that. It's not something that we have spent a fair bit of time on, to be honest. We've, of course, looked at AI and ML and those types of applications for maps. That's a huge part of what we do. But blockchain isn't something yet, we have spent any time on, to be honest. So, sorry, I'm not going to help.
No, not a problem. And Raj, great question. I always love this because there was a time maybe 2 years ago where every company was forced to, at least, I remember when there was every company rebranded whatever they were doing and said, we are doing cloud. And that was hilarious because no one was doing it. They just now suddenly called themselves cloud. And then there was 2 years ago when everybody started branding themselves as blockchain. I think we are past that. I do think there are useful scenarios, by the way, in the supply chain industry when it comes to peer-to-peer information sharing, which is layered upon locational data. And I think that's where blockchain right now is showing a lot of promise, particularly when you need third-party verification, but you don't want two systems to directly communicate to each other or to have a central repository because you don't have trust built into the system. But I think those are amazing solutions that will get layered on this current mapping solution. I'm not sure if we'll have a blockchain map system yet as much as a pure play map system. I certainly haven't heard of anything that's come out. Um, we have one more question from an anonymous attendee. How can so you mentioned early on, right, that users can report stuff that's going on? How does that work? They download the app and they click on their
Yeah.
location. How does it work?
Yeah. So either you download the MapmyIndia Move app or you go on the maps.mapmyindia.com portal, you click on report and issue, and then a menu opens up with all corona related reports. There are other things also that people use to report, like traffic and safety and community related issues. But we have a whole section on corona related information as to, suspected case or quarantine or lockdown related issue, grocery delivery issue, uh, you know, so that's how you report it. We validate it in terms of in terms of just sanctity of the information that you're putting in, not so much the accuracy of that information. That we leave to the authorities to validate with you, because you have to sign in to report. So there has to be it cannot be an anonymous report, because it has to be traced back to who reported, because probably they're asking for help or they want something to happen on that. So we haven't yet enabled an anonymous report. We didn't feel uh, that would be a countable system. So.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, I can imagine lots of random people just, pranking reports rather than
Yeah.
really taking responsibility that I reported this. And we have strong laws in India that prevent such false reports. So I think genuine citizens should not be afraid of
It's really
putting
meant
out.
for genuine citizens to report genuine issues that are happening, and it's very helpful, because a lot of people put on Twitter, I'm facing this issue, I'm facing this issue, and the like even Niti Ayog's Amitabh Kant, he wrote, like, can you tell me specifically where I will send that local person? So it's about communicating where, what is the issue where. I think if you're
And
clear
where
on that,
exactly, not like, oh,
where
I
exactly,
face this
yeah,
in this huge
yeah.
monetary man. It's like,
Yeah,
so take
I
me
mean, if you're going to create efficiency, you got to pinpoint things. And like,
exactly.
if you are pinpointing it, you are the one who have faced an issue or knows of an issue. Pinpoint it exactly on the map, so make it easier for the person responding to that report to just go there and then, have that information ready. So that's the idea with report, and anybody can do that.
Brilliant, Rohan. Do you have, we are almost out of time. Do you have any last things you would like to say?
Um, of course, I want to encourage everybody to kind of use the mapping system, benefit from it, and report issues. And we are trying to enable this ecosystem to tackle the Corona crisis. We are just one out of probably hundreds of organizations that are contributing to this in their bigger ways. We are doing it in our way. So that's my message to everybody. To Aditya specifically, I mean, first of all, thanks for bringing me on board to CII and to this webinar. I think for folks who have known Aditya personally for 17 years and his family, both have demonstrated a lot of societal and social leadership. I think it's a testament to their heritage and their values. My kids go to their family's school, and I can only say good things, very very good things about it. It's so, and even as an organization, we work with them, and I think we found excellence in corporate governance standards as well as social leadership. So thanks a lot for this opportunity, Aditya.
Well, we are absolutely delighted to have you here. Everyone, please go use Map My India. I use both, but when I'm in trouble, I know which app do I really need to use, and which is Map My India. Particularly if you're in India, you would be shocked and surprised to see the amount of effort. We haven't had time to cover it. I mean, it is a testament to Rohan. 17 years, 25 years, India's oldest digital mapping company, they have really figured this out. I mean, the kind of time and effort they have seen, and I've seen it happen in front of me, from just starting with a few maps online to being able to, map every single address in most parts of the country super accurately and super well. Please do download it. Please do use it in your daily lives, particularly during this crisis. If there is something happening in your community, this is a great way to report it, document it, and get it out. I am astonished at the leadership Very, very expected, but very, very nice to see that, Rohan, that, really saying that, look, under this crisis, we are going to step up. We're going to put 200 people just on this. We are going to help citizens. We're going to do this for free for governments. We're going to get all this data. We are going to provide them with this back end. A lot of the stuff that everybody is using is actually powered by MapmyIndia. And I think it's something that even as regular consumers, you will find a lot of value in. If you are, I know a lot of people are connecting at tech companies, our normal companies, please do have a look at the APIs. They are fantastic. See what you can leverage to make your own apps, to help in the coronavirus, but as well as beyond that. India needs a lot of innovation in the next upcoming years, and using fantastic locational platforms, particularly for supply chain, services, and all, is going to be absolutely essential. And I think having a local player like MapmyIndia, who is on the ground and focused on India, is a fantastic support to have. They're not going anywhere, and they're going to always put India first. With that, I'd love to close. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Thank you for the amazing questions. I wish we had more time. Please look at the links I've sent out on the Zoom chat. Full list of CII webinars. We have an exciting number of them ahead. Please join either the Telegram groups or the broadcast groups. We will be sending out the complete recording of this as well as for all our other sessions. And Rohan, if I may ask, if you could please send us all the links we talked about, the COVID guide, the link to the app, and all of this stuff. We will post that very shortly. Thank you. Stay safe. Stay a little bit paranoid, but stay positive.
Thank you. Have a good day.